Welcome back to the 39th online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peace Point with myself, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Last time you saw me, we looked at aim in life and the 5 hindrances. With the Dhamma talk today, we'll revisit one of my earlier broadcasts from 2020 entitled Liberating, Coarse and Fine-Tuning of the Mind, to make some repairs to the recording. So today's session will run to about an hour and a quarter with a 30-minute talk, 25 minutes of meditation, and finishing up with 25 minutes of viewer questions and news updates. As usual, in case anyone out there is actually listening this session, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com so that I can have a shot at answering those questions next time round. So let's start by looking at the interplay between everyday life and our ability to meditate well. You're probably well aware of the ups and downs of your own mind in any typical day. An example of a day in the life of an average meditator shows ups and downs all day long. We might get up in the morning with the best of intentions and fine-tune the potential of our mind by doing our morning meditation. Then, while we are enthusiastically preparing a special breakfast for our old mother, we might be able to maintain a mind that is clear as it was during our actual meditation. However, even before our mother has arrived to have her breakfast, we might get mad at the kids who are late for school, and consequently our state of mind might have been reduced to that of someone who never meditated before. When our mother arrives, our mind will be brought back to a state of clarity as we give her her breakfast. We will have recovered a clear mind worthy of being a meditator. But as we're leaving for work, we might spoil the tuning of our mind again, shouting at the kids for being late for school. As soon as we leave the house, we get our temper back. In the best of moods, we make the intention to do our very best at work that day, to make every cent of the wage we receive from our employer to count. The black clouds of our mind go over the horizon and we're back in a frame of mind befitting of a meditator. But alas, another car cuts in front of us, and thoughts of revenge stir up a storm of anger in our mind to upset us for the rest of the day. It's only at the end of the day, when we have the chance to meditate again in the evening, that we can recover the quality of our mind by the fine-tuning of meditation. Don't worry, ups and downs of the mind are nothing special. Most of us have the same ups and downs in the course of our making our way through life in the real world. When we meditate, it's like recharging our batteries. During the day, we mostly just let our batteries run down. The only difference being from one person to another, whether our batteries run down more or less quickly. The best you can normally do during your day is to maintain the good and positive state of mind that you've built up for yourself during your meditation. In other words, if you want to maintain the quality of your mind all day long, apart from meditating regularly, you also have to try to lead your life in a way that will support the quality of your mind. Because meditation is an abstract concept, it's easiest to understand it in the beginning in terms of metaphors. I want you for a moment to picture an old-fashioned radio set, which has 2 knobs for tuning, one large one and one small one. When you've decided what radio station you want to hear, you go looking for it by turning the large knob. Only when you start to hear the radio station you want to hear, do you use the small knob to fine-tune to your station to filter out any crackles, hisses, and whines. Just as radios have coarse and fine-tuning, it is no surprise that meditation works in the same way. Only we are tuning into the equilibrium of body and mind. Coarse tuning for meditation means the baseline of decent behavior in your everyday life that supports your happy state of mind, It allows you to feel good about yourself. Fine-tuning means meditation practice itself, sitting cross-legged with our eyes closed to focus our mind inward. If you want to put it another way, you can say that coarse tuning is like working with the worst of your meditation, while fine-tuning is working with the best of your meditation. In practice, we have to use a combination of fine and coarse tuning to iron out the ups and downs our mind experiences in everyday life. Left to its own devices, the mind will flip-flop between elation and disappointment all day long. But through meditation and mindfulness, we are going to see how we can flatten out the roller coaster of our mental states. We cannot afford merely to do the fine-tuning or coarse tuning alone. If you try meditating, which is fine-tuning, without paying any attention to the dignity of your everyday life, then you will find that your progress is dragged down by a low baseline of coarse tuning in your everyday life. You will come up against a dead end in your meditation. On the contrary, if you try coarse tuning by trying to lead a wholesome everyday life without making the effort to fine-tune by meditating, again your progress will be limited. This is sometimes the case for kind old ladies you see doing charitable works all their lives, but who never get round to doing meditation. Again, you'll come up against a dead end in terms of quality of mind. The ideal alternative is to do coarse tuning and fine-tuning hand in hand. When you meditate more, you will see more of the shortcomings in the way you lead your everyday life. And remedying that, you'll be able to go further in your meditation, and so on without end, so that your progress will be perpetual. Where you come across a whole lot of resistance in your meditation, generally it indicates that something is lacking in terms of coarse tuning. Another common reason for meditation giving unwanted results is that the motive for meditation is not entirely pure. Some people want to learn meditation not to relax or become wise, but instead to dominate other people or aggrandize themselves, as meditation teachers perhaps. Sometimes they are in for a surprise because they are unwilling for their mind to leave behind the negative motivation which meditation is supposed to diffuse. When they struggle to keep the negative things which they want to maintain, it creates side effects. What they've forgotten is that the power of meditation always develops in proportion to purity of mind. Purity of a mind free from negative elements. This is another reason to explain why we always emphasize the importance of respectful attitude toward the founder of a tradition instead of deluding ourselves how great we are as a guru, because to brag or to aggrandize ourselves is always tantamount to impure motivation in meditation. The first thing we have to pay special attention to in the fine-tuning of the mind is the exact place where we focus our attention. We can broadly categorize the results of fine-tuning of the mind according to the place where the mind is focused. You may remember I previously talked about different places you can focus the mind in meditation, and indeed, there are three main groups. The first category includes all methods of meditation where people focus their mind on an object outside the body. When you meditate to a certain level in this category of techniques, you will attain vision, but no knowledge. This can be unsettling because if you meditate and get visions about things you don't understand, you may become frightened. The downside of such meditation, because the meditation is outside the body, is that it's not completely under the control of the meditator, like in self-hypnosis or seances, and is a risky way of training yourself because sometimes you can get into mental states that you can't get out of again by yourself. Second category of meditation includes the sorts of meditation where you focus upon some part of your own body, like the skin of your stomach or your nostril, concentration on the loathsomeness of your own body, or concentration upon in and out breathing. This sort of meditation, you get to know things, but you have no accompanying picture, which again can be quite unsettling. Best of all is to have both vision and knowledge in balance, to know as much as you see and see as much as you know. These are the hallmarks of a third category of meditation, where we focus the mind internally at the center of the body. With this sort of meditation, especially Dhammakaya meditation, you can make progress in confidence without having to rely too heavily on a teacher. Consequently, you will see that the center of the body bypasses all the troubles which might otherwise waste years of your time, and is a quick way to allow the meditator to advance their inner experience. 40 major techniques of meditation are described in mainstream meditation texts. All the 40 techniques described in ancient tradition are regarded as meditation with vision and knowledge in balance, and are to be chosen according to the taste of the meditator. Like I mentioned last session, when explaining how to put yourself in the mood for meditation, it is a personal choice about which form of meditation falls within your comfort zone, and will lead you to the point where you can touch upon enlightenment. For different people, different things bring a feeling of contentment in meditation. It's just the same as people have different favorite foods. Whenever they eat their favorite food, then they are in a good mood for the rest of the day. But it's not to say that the same food is best for everybody. Some people like cake, others like seafood. Some people even like different foods on different days. Thus, for Dhammakaya meditation, we have a variety of approaches to meditation to match people's different preferences. But they're all designed to lead us to the same goal. Just like whatever sort of food you eat, ultimately it only has the function to fill up your stomach. Once you have discovered a meditation technique that is amenable for you, it doesn't mean that it's the best for everybody. Some beginners who lack experience or who are narrow-minded might criticize others' choice of meditation technique because they assume that their own technique is the best for everybody, and those who practice meditation differently are wrong. Mainstream meditation techniques may have different starting points, but in the end, as the meditator in each technique progresses more, their experience becomes more and more similar as they progress along the path. It can be noted that meditators, even in different spiritual traditions, start with different cultural backgrounds, but as they meditate more, they find that their experiences converge. Despite their differences, eventually all seem to end up describing experiences of inner light. They talk about unity of experience and overcoming contradictions. This is because meditation is a human phenomenon. It's not a technique that belongs to any particular spiritual tradition. Today, I have selected some examples of this from different spiritual traditions. First example comes from Dr. R.M. Buck, who was a Canadian psychiatrist who wrote a book called Cosmic Consciousness, a study in the evolution of the human mind in 1901. From my understanding, he was a man of science who was not convinced by any religious faith tradition, but who had a mystical experience in spite of himself. He described a spontaneous experience he once had as he returned home from a meeting with friends one evening. He recounted, "My mind was deeply under the influence of ideas, images, and emotions called up by the reading and the talk of the evening. My mind was calm and peaceful. It was in a state of quiet, almost passive enjoyment, not actually thinking of letting ideas, images, and emotions flow themselves through my mind. All at once, without warning of any kind, I found myself wrapped in a flame-colored cloud. For an instant, I thought of fire, but in the next moment, I knew it was a fire within myself. Directly afterwards, there came a great sense of exaltation, of immense joyousness, accompanied or immediately followed by an intellectual illumination impossible to describe." The second Christian example comes from the Gospel of Luke. Your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eyes are good, your whole body is full of light. But when they are bad, your body is full of darkness. See to it then that the light within you is not darkness. The third is an Islamic example from a poet called Iraqi, who was a Persian mystic poet of the 13th century. When at thy love a lamp we light, our barn of being is ablaze, and of that inward glow so bright, a wisp of smoke to heaven we raise. My final example comes from the Chinese Buddhist tradition, deriving from the Platform Sutra of the 6th Patriarch Huineng. Within the domain of our mind, there is a wisdom of enlightenment which sends forth a powerful light which illuminates externally the 6 gates of sensation and purifies them. This light is strong enough to pierce through the 6 heavens of desire, and when it is turned inwardly to the essence of mind, it eliminates at once the 3 poisonous elements, greed, hatred, and delusion, purges away our sins which might lead us to the hells, and enlightens us thoroughly within and without. In conclusion, like meditation in a syringe, you can inject it in any one of your 10 fingers, but in the end it will pass through the veins of your wrist and pass along your arm to your heart and will reach the whole of your body, no matter which finger it was originally that you injected the liquid into. In the same way, a properly balanced meditation means a technique of meditation that allows the mind to undergo both coarse and fine-tuning in step with one another. It will lead to both knowledge and vision, vision that becomes a possibility when inner light arises. Those who try to fine-tune before they've done their coarse tuning risk suffering from the side effects of unbalanced meditation techniques, such as the hypnotism, trances, and seances already mentioned, which do not even internalize the mind, let alone allow the mind to become further refined. If both knowledge and vision are attained, the result will be to free the mind. Everybody believes that their life is a very personal matter, and yet how many people feel that they really have their life under control? Freedom is desired by many, but achieved by few, because people generally equate freedom with choice. And by contrast, choice conspires with greed to make us wage slaves, to have to pay for it all. Everyone would like to think that they have been born free, but in the end, the freedom we have is never enough. Teenagers feel frustrated by anything that cramps their style. They rebel to vent their feelings of dissatisfaction for the ties that bind by running away from home, sniffing solvents, or simply acting out. In the old days, it used to be only teenagers who felt the need to rebel. Nowadays, though, even adults feel the need to rebel against nebulous withholders of freedom, such as the government, the law, or even coronavirus regulations. Alas, it is the case of out of the frying pan and into the fire. Running away from one sort of restriction, you always seem to be caught by another. The more desperate one's search for freedom, the more elusive freedom seems to become. The ultimate goal in the search should be the freedom for the mind to maintain its happiness no matter what situation the outside world may be. The enemy is clearly identified not as others who infringe our rights, but as our own inability to control the response of our mind to the situations around us. We need to be able to tell the difference between the freedom of the body and the freedom of the mind. Ironically, some of the ways of limiting our physical freedom can even heighten our sensitivity to freedom for the mind, allowing us to learn more about ourselves, especially about our own potential for purity of mind, something the philosopher Kierkegaard called the principle of limitation. Many scientists would have us believe that our behavior, like that of animals, can be explained merely by stimulus-response reflexes. They say that given enough time, they will eventually discover every secret influence that is forcing people to respond in certain ways. On the other hand, it is the experience of many others but we are not just robots who respond automatically in the same way every time we meet a particular situation. A case in point is the biography of Victor Frankl, who was a determinist raised in the tradition of Freudian psychology, which postulates that whatever happens to you as a child determines the fate of the rest of your life, that the limits and parameters of your life are set in stone in childhood, and basically there is nothing further you can do about it. Victor Frankl was a psychiatrist and a Jew. He was imprisoned in the death camps of Nazi Germany, where he experienced things that were so repugnant to his sense of decency that we shudder even to repeat them. His parents, his brother, and his wife died in the camps or were sent to the gas chambers. Except for his sister, his entire family perished. Frankl himself suffered torture and innumerable indignities, never knowing from one moment to the next if his path would be to the ovens or if he were to be amongst the lucky ones who would get to shovel out the ashes of their fellows. One day, naked and alone in a small cell, he began to become aware of what he called the last of the human freedoms, the only freedom which the Nazi captors could not take away from him. They could control his entire environment, and they could do what they wanted to his body. But Victor Frankl was a self-aware being who could stand back from his situation and look on instead as an observer. His basic identity was still intact. He could decide himself how all of this was going to affect him, between what happened to him, that is the stimulus, and his response to it was his freedom or power to choose that response. He used mental, emotional, and moral discipline to amplify this still small and embryonic freedom, letting it grow stronger and stronger until he had more freedom even than his Nazi captors. Those Nazis had more liberty and more options to choose from, but Frankl had more freedom in terms of internal power to exercise his options. At a certain point in his internment, some of his Nazi captors were even coming to him to receive his encouragement about their own problems. When Frankl was eventually released from the camp at the end of the war, he started to write about a completely different sort of emancipatory psychology, as it's shown in his masterpiece called Man's Search for Meaning. Some of us may be on lockdown, and we may feel we have lost the freedom to exercise much control over our lives. But the important freedom we learn from Victor Frankl's story is that, irrespective of our circumstances, we can either develop or neglect the power we have over the quality of our minds when the events of the outside world conspire to affect us. Victor Frankl's life may be rather an extreme example, so let's look at an example a little closer to home. Many people blame others for ruining their lives. For example, they blame their boss for ruining their day, even when the most draconian boss really does not have the power even to upset them. You can only become upset if you allow the situation to upset you. That's the only way the upset can happen, when you let upsetting thoughts get under your skin. Your upset can only come from what you think. It cannot be caused by what someone else thinks. As an example of this phenomenon, suppose early one morning you found out you'd won the lottery and you are coming to work to hand in your notice. Your plan is to take your $10 million, retire to Florida, and lie on the beach for the rest of your life. Now, on this fine day, what would happen if your boss stopped by your workstation and says something sarcastic about your work? Would you let it get under your skin? No, you'd probably just laugh at them or tell them where to go. You might even give them a big hug and thank them for modeling the perfect opposite of the sort of person you choose to have in your life. So why doesn't your boss have the power to upset you today? It's because your positive expectations about winning the lottery are so strong. Supposing later the same day you double-checked your lottery ticket against the newspaper, and you suddenly realize that you were one number off. You didn't really win the lottery after all. You didn't win the lottery, but yet you managed to maintain the freedom of your mind in spite of the boss. It wasn't the money because there wasn't really any money. It was your belief that you got rich. In other words, it was just your imagination that made you happy and not the notional lottery winnings. This doesn't alter the fact that some days it is easier to safeguard the happiness of your mind than others. This is because certain things affect how easy it is to keep our mind isolated from the events of the world around us. Certain categories of things that really push our buttons are events that compromise our conscience, leaving us with a sense of guilt, meaning that it is hard for us to keep our circumstances at psychological arm's length. What we call our liberty or freedom of mind is actually a thin space or buffer zone between the events of the outside world and the feelings inside our mind. Space is like a gap between the clutch plates of a car engine, or the space between an orange and its peel, or the space between a tire and its inner tube. For as long as there's a space between two things, then they can move independently. However, the moment the space is compromised, any upset of the outer world will affect the inner world too. The slide shows how greed, hatred, or delusion creeping into the mind can manage to compromise the space that gives our mind freedom from external circumstances. In our human condition, even if we know about the ties that bind us to the outside world, sometimes we are powerless to help ourselves. There are channels of connection from which it is particularly hard to break free. Sometimes it's as if the mind is running slower than the real-time events of the world, like an outdated computer with limited processing power. Sometimes it's as if the mind has become sticky and cannot help but get hung up on the events of the outside world. It's like an employee who gets behind with their work. They no longer have the choice as to when and in what order they will do their work. They just have to double down and get on their efforts until they have cleared the backlog. Whatever the symptoms, the loss of freedom can be blamed on certain classes of events that are particularly threatening to our mental freedom. And at root, these are the mental impurities of greed, hatred, and delusion we have already heard about in our previous sessions. The regrettable thing we have done in the past, which upset the positive quality of our minds, may also come from ill-chosen words we have said to people in the past, or from bad ways we have treated fellow beings around us in the world. If you want to treat others well with understanding and compassion, you'll be able to use this social situation to widen the gap of freedom between the mind and the outside world. If, however, we treat others badly, especially if we take advantage of their weaknesses, it will narrow any freedom buffer zone in the mind that we formerly had. All of these are items that can be explained as the coarse tuning of the mind, which we talked about earlier. There's another great metaphor for how we can become prisoners of our own attitudes. Did you ever hear about the Indian monkey trap? Well, it's a way of catching monkeys without using a gun or a net. All you need is a banana as bait and a piece of wood with a hole in it, and the monkey will trap itself by its own stupidity and greed. The monkey puts its hand through the hole in the wood and grabs the banana. When it tries to withdraw its hand, it cannot because the hole is not large enough to let a fist holding a banana pass back through. For all intents and purposes, the monkey is stuck, but it will not let go of the banana. If it did, it could just walk away. However, it refuses to let go, and so there it stays until the hunter comes along and takes it home to make monkey soup. Some people are just like that monkey. They have their weaknesses, and although they know perfectly well what those weaknesses are, they refuse to change themselves for better. Some people know that if they are ever cured of an addiction, depression, or their bad habits, they can no longer play the victim. They will no longer be able to blame their bad behavior on their problem. They will no longer have something to identify with or to complain about to their sympathizers. Therefore, like the monkey with the banana, they refuse to let go. In doing so, they jeopardize their whole future just to identify with their problem. Therefore, don't allow yourself to become monkey soup. Allow yourself to let go of your problems so that you can gain real freedom of mind that doesn't entail emotional blackmail or an emotional crutch. And with that thought in mind now, through meditation, we are going to see if we can take our hand out of that proverbial Indian monkey trap by doing some meditation together. So now we come to time for the meditation ourselves. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my instructions.
So, from this moment forth, may all of you make the firm intention to meditate to the best of your ability, realigning yourselves with the pathway to nirvana. May all of you sit cross-legged, with your right leg on your left leg, your right hand on your left hand, the index finger of your right hand touching against the thumb of your left hand, with your hands resting gently, palm upwards on your lap. Close your eyes very gently, just as if you were only half closing your eyes. Similar to the way you may close your eyes just before going to sleep. Never squeeze your eyes closed, and make sure there's no pressure around your eyes. You'll have no tension around your eyes, and your body will be completely relaxed. And fill your mind with happiness and joy, so that your mind feels refreshed and pure, clear and bright, free of any sort of worries whatsoever. No matter what sort of worries might come through your mind, let go of them all completely. Forget about all the things of the world, allowing your mind to be completely still. And imagine that inside your body is free of any organs or tissues, any muscles or bones, as if inside your body is just an empty space, just like a hollow cavity inside yourself, rather like a crystal tube or a diamond tube. Today, as we meditate, we take the opportunity to revise some points of technique in meditation which will be particularly useful for anyone who feels that they are being held back in meditation by insufficient understanding. We have all been doing the 10 items of homework mentioned in the Dream Kindergarten every day, practicing regularly. We have already started to understand the most efficient way to bring the mind to the center of our bodies. With experience, even just thinking about the center of the body, you'll find that your mind is already there at that point, 2 finger breadths above the navel. If you are adept, you will find that your mind can go straight through the center of the body. However, for those of you who have not progressed this far, you have to start off by resting your mind at the point which for you feels like the point of greatest contentment, without worrying too much about the precise position of the center of the body. Put your mind at the point which feels most comfortable and easy for you, and you will find that the happiness from meditation will gradually become apparent to you. You will start to feel that the solidity of your body is melting away into the atmosphere around you, starting to become more hollow and empty inside, as if you feel spaciousness, or as if you were alone in empty space. Some people will feel as if their body has disappeared altogether, as if all that's left is the feeling of your awareness. Some people don't know what to do next when they reach this point in their meditation, where their body seems to have disappeared. But the thing which one ought to do is just to rest our mind at whatever point feels the most comfortable for us, starting off with our mind there. Once our mind comes fully into equilibrium, you will start to realize that the mind is automatically realigning itself with the real center of the body. Some people may find it useful to imagine a bright, clear object about the size of a pinpoint, or like a star in the sky, as if one is appearing at the point where the mind has come to a standstill. We should keep such an image in the mind, gazing at it continuously and softly, but never attempting to stare, almost as if you are looking at it out of the corner of your eye, almost unintentionally. If we can observe it in the proper way, without using too little or too much effort, in doing so, before long we will be able to perceive something. However, if we use too much force, it will disappear. If we use too little effort, allowing ourselves to become distracted, then we will find that the object would disappear. So either way, too much effort or too little, it will disappear. And finding the optimum effort by which we can see the object the whole of the time. This is the real skill which we have to build up in our meditation. This is what we have to work on. What we have to do is simply to allow our mind to remain at a standstill without letting any questions come up in our mind, no doubts, as if we were just an inanimate piece of putty which was unable to think, like an object which has never had any thought of its own before. If this is how you start to feel about yourself, then this is the proper approach to the meditation. If you are unable to think any more, this will stand you in good stead, all the way from the beginning of meditation to the more advanced stages. Because education, through meditation, is beyond the realm of conceptual thinking. It is knowledge that arises when the mind is free of thought. It is pure, bright knowledge. We learn merely by what we see, acquiring the knowledge directly. It is rather different from the modes of learning we are used to. We have to study and memorize, read and write to increase your knowledge. The sort of knowledge we are talking about is a knowledge which comes independent of thought. It can arise only in a mind which is free of thought, a mind that is at a standstill. In Buddhism, such knowledge is called Bhavana Mayapanya, the wisdom arising from a still mind. It is practiced until it gives rise to inner brightness in the mind, and through the brightness we are able to see more than before, and by seeing more than before, we learn new things about the reality of life in the world. This process is the opposite to our habitual methods of learning new things in the world. It allows us access to knowledge from inside. However, if we try to apply the external methods of education to our meditation, it will be more of a hindrance than a help. So please remember these words well. All we require in our meditation is merely to bring our mind to a standstill. In fact, you can bring your mind to a standstill anywhere at all in the beginning. Only when your mind is subtle and pliable will it be ready to make its way to the center of the body. A mind that is properly adapted will have the feeling of being alive and awake inside. It will have a feeling that is completely different from feelings encountered during the mundane run of events in our life. It will be as if something wonderful is stirring within us, with a quality completely different from our external feeling. Therefore, bringing the mind inside to the seventh base of the mind takes only a very gentle attention. Like an intention, on the off chance it will bring our mind to the center of the body. Once our mind comes to a standstill, at this point of stillness in our center, it will remain still from that time onwards. gently, in stillness, at the center of the body. You have to make sure that you are always having a feeling of ease in your meditation. If you ever feel that you are putting up a struggle in your meditation or trying to force it, then that is not the proper method at all. This applies both to body and to mind. If you find a feeling of tension inside, you need to relax yourself further, particularly your nervous system and your muscles, before you continue with your meditation. Once your body is relaxed, your mind will relax as well. Your body will be completely relaxed and still. So we have to train our mind in this way, and at that point we will be able to see a bright, clear sphere inside ourselves. Even with our eyes closed, it will not be dark inside for us anymore. We will be able to maintain our mind internally, stopping it from wandering anywhere else easily, the whole of the time. Maintaining the mind in equilibrium at the center of the body, we will find that there is a feeling of expansion inside. With such a feeling of expansion, we will have a sense that we are being drawn inwards, as if we are being attracted through into a new dimension by a giant magnet deep inside us. At this point, some meditators may respond to the new experience with surprise or even fright, because it's something they have never encountered before. However, we must just comply with whatever is the nature of our mind. We have to just let such experiences be, rather than struggling against them or even reacting to them. We must remain impartial to the inner experience, allowing it to follow through by itself. We will see that the study of inner knowledge like this is all the outcome of placing our mind by the proper method at the center of the body. If you can do this before long, we will be able to manage the proper method wherever we are. But in the beginning, it is important that we have the confidence in our own ability to meditate. We have to believe that we are going to be able to make progress in our meditation. We have to believe that it's merely a question of having a proper understanding of the method. Thus, all it takes is to study the method properly, and you'll be able to make progress. Don't go doubting your potential to make progress in meditation. Some people tend to dwell on the bad deeds they've done in the past, thinking that they are at a disadvantage in meditation because of them. Others think they've had a clouded mind for the best part of their life, and it's going to be impossible to teach an old dog new tricks. Such thinking is not worthy of DMC viewers. If we lack confidence in ourselves, we can't expect to make a success of anything. The fact that even with our eyes shut, we can spoon food into our mouths or point directly to the tip of our nose should dispel any doubts we have about bringing the mind to the center of the body, because after all, you already know everything about the meditation technique you need to know. All the know-how necessary to achieve success in meditation has already been put at your disposal. Nothing has been kept back. You have to train yourself and devote yourself passionately to the practice of meditation in every spare moment you have, because this is the knowledge that is the most important knowledge in life. Even though you might have got yourself a doctorate degree, it can only ever help you to earn your living more easily, or to win acceptance in the eyes of society, to bolster your reputation. But once you come to the point where you're on your deathbed, even the best of academic knowledge will not help you to get a better place in your afterlife. But the things we're studying here, to do with the stillness of the mind, these are the things which are the most important of all. They are the real knowledge of life, and we must give this knowledge due importance. You can train yourself in meditation any time and any place, when taking a wash, washing up, sweeping the garden or mopping the floor. You can train yourself to keep your mind at the center of the body the whole of the time, whether standing, walking, sitting or lying down. Even when paying a visit to the restroom, you can train yourself in meditation while sitting there. You already know all the principles of maintaining subtlety of mind. Maintaining mindfulness and self-possession hand in hand, regularly and consistently. You can imagine a visual object at your center if you wish, or you can simply rest your mind at the center while observing whatever arises there spontaneously. You can imagine an image, like a bright sphere or a Buddha image, or any of the root teachers for whom you have particular faith. You can even think of something as simple as a piece of fruit. Any image will serve for this purpose, as long as it's not an image that stirs up unwholesome emotions in your mind. When imagining the object, you already have all the know-how you need, such as using only the gentlest of effort when imagining. If you haven't struck the right balance when focusing, using too much or too little effort, then your body will tell you about it. Too much effort, and you'll end up with tension on your eyebrows or across your shoulders, and you may end up with a headache. If you find that your fingers are curling up or your abdomen is tense, then you are trying too hard. However, if you succumb to boredom or you find yourself looking at the clock, again these are the signs that you haven't struck the right balance. Don't struggle on if you have these sort of symptoms, but you have to readjust your technique, relax yourself, and be more at ease in your meditation. Once you are back on the right track, the sign will be a sensation of bodily lightness and expansion inside yourself, and your mind will feel light, pliable, and easy to work with. You'll feel that time passes by more quickly than it really does, and you'll feel that you don't want the meditation to come to an end, as if you'd like to extend the length of your meditation, as if you've been glued to your meditation mat. When your meditation is going well, your body will automatically set itself up in a position of poise, where the body seems to inflate itself into the most elegant and upright of postures. When we feel that we are happy with our meditation, when we have a smile on our face, these are all indications that we are on the right track with our meditation technique. On the contrary, if the more we sit for meditation, the more upset or depressed we feel, then this would show that we have not adjusted our mind in the proper way. If you start out in meditation looking as if you are 20 and end up looking as if you are 40, then you need to readjust your meditation technique. You know the difference between right and wrong technique perfectly well, so all that is lacking is the confidence that we can achieve success in meditation, and to train ourselves continuously while being observant of all the things which aid or obstruct our progress. Once we are properly adjusted, body and mind will be clear and bright. Simply putting our mind at the center of the body will cause the sphere there to expand, and we will fall through the center to find the next sphere inside. As the mind comes to a standstill at the center of that sphere, then there will be a new one, brighter and clearer than the last, appearing at the center. And before long, we will be able to attain the inner bodies and attain the body of enlightenment within ourselves, exactly according to the recipe for success discovered by the great abbot of Wat Phra Nam. Because all of these things are inside the body of every person, and that includes us too. We know the difference between right and wrong methodology. So therefore, we should train ourselves continuously, according to the proper way. Don't be lazy, and don't prevaricate about getting down to meditation in earnest. And when you feel your meditation is going well, don't give up immediately, but give it a little while longer than usual. Don't go thinking, today I've had a good meditation, but I'm in a rush to go to bed. I guess I'll be able to sit for meditation even better tomorrow. Never think like that, because the opportunity for meditation to go well happens only very rarely. All the effort we have invested in our meditation is made worthwhile by the days when our meditation goes well, so don't waste it. Don't go worrying about missing out on your beauty sleep, because we've already spent a third of our lives asleep. One night of missed sleep won't harm you. So give due importance to the meditation. If your meditation is going well, you should continue with it. Your body will indicate by itself when it needs rest, and that will be the right time to sleep. You ought to go to bed because your body needs it, not because your mind is worried about the lack of sleep, or looking exhausted at work, or not being able to think through decisions clearly in the morning. Don't harbor such lazy temptations in your mind, because the opportunity of your mind to come into equilibrium is rarer in anyone's lifetime than winning first prize on the lottery. So if you find your meditation is going well, then know it's useful to continue for meditation longer than usual, and this will help you to go much further, because the results of making even a one-time breakthrough in your meditation will stay with you for the rest of your life. However, if you give up your meditation just as it's going well, even though you come back to the meditation at a later time, it may mean that you will never get those good experiences back again. It may take us many more years to get back to the same point in our meditation again. So we should cherish our meditation experiences, and rather than remembering the experience which we had on a particular day, we should try to remember the methodology we used to reach the experience on that day. Because there's a temptation to remember just the experiences while forgetting how we got there. So take care to remember all the advice and know-how mentioned today, because one day it will allow you to attain the triple gem inside yourself, and you will literally be able to have the triple gem as your refuge all your life, with happiness from the moment you attain it, leading you to the fortunate realms after your death, allowing you to study about the reality of life and the world. And when you come to do meritorious deeds, even though the amount of the meritorious deeds may be small, the amount of merit we gain will be large. It will allow our mind to be radiant the whole of the time. There are countless things which we can attain if we reach the triple gem inside ourselves. So anyone who is sleepy, fatigued or tense in their meditation should allow themselves to fall asleep at the center as they sit, and continue with the meditation when they wake up. Anyone who has aches and pains should change posture. If your stream of thoughts is never-ending, open your eyes and close them again. May all of you be fulfilled in your wish to attain the triple gem inside yourself. Now, each their own meditation for a few more moments in silence until we come to the appropriate time.
Sappa Buddhanupavena, Sappa Dhammanupavena, Sappa Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. So to finish up with a little more theory, let's look at the sort of coarse tuning that will really help the quality of meditation in your everyday life. From what I was saying earlier about fluctuations in the quality of our mind, you'll realize that success in meditation is not just about sitting cross-legged with your eyes closed. If you can keep your mind at the center of your body by visualizing a bright object whenever you remember throughout the day, otherwise known as mindfulness, you can help to develop your concentration to become more continuous. Some people wonder how they can possibly fit meditation into their hectic lifestyle of business commitments. In fact, it is more a question of adapting your lifestyle and your daily schedule in a way that makes more space for quality of mind. Especially if you are on lockdown, you have an especially good opportunity for learning to be mindful in familiar surroundings. So, having seen the roller coaster of the average meditator's daily life without coarse and fine-tuning at the beginning of this session, let's imagine an ideal meditator's day in life. When you wake up in the morning, your first thought of the day should be to recollect the bright object at the center of your body. Only then should you get out of bed. Feel that the crystal ball is inside you. Maybe in the morning you don't have much time to sit down for meditation. However, as you take a shower, instead of just letting your thoughts wander or worrying about what you're going to do when you get to work, as you are washing yourself in the shower, think of your crystal ball at the same time, as if you are cleaning it to make it purer, brighter, and clearer. Get dressed for work. Perhaps you will only have time in the morning to sit for 10 or 20 minutes of meditation, but try to keep some spare time for longer meditation in case you have to settle a restless mind. As you are having your breakfast, instead of letting your mind wander, think of every mouthful of food as a mouthful of crystal that is swallowed down to add to the brightness of a big crystal ball at the center of your stomach. Sitting in the car on the way to work, whether you are the driver or the passenger, you can use the time on the road or in the traffic jams to meditate, either with your eyes open if you're at the wheel, or with your eyes closed if you are a passenger. As you drive along, you can listen to a meditation audio track at the same time. When you arrive at work, be sure your crystal ball is at the center of your body, and only then sit down to work. Although you may be pressured at work all day long, whenever there is a lull in business, no matter how short it is, bring your mind back to the crystal ball at the center of your body. At first, you may not be able to bring the mind back to meditation very often, but later, as you become more used to meditating continuously, the mind will shift automatically to meditation without any effort. And it'll be easy to imagine. Whenever you come across any stress or problems without obvious solutions, sit for meditation and let the mind come to a standstill until you can see the crystal ball inside. Sometimes you may find that the crystal ball seems to be full of the very problems that you've seen to be disturbing your concentration. However, don't worry too much. The crystal ball inside is probably in the process of ameliorating those problems. After wise reflection at the center, a way out of the problems may seem to emerge. Stress and suffering may seem to be eased. While working, let your mind visualize the crystal ball, even with your eyes open, every time the mind is free. Your brain gives the commands, your hands do the work, but your mind stays with the crystal ball at the center of your body. Even though you may not be able to manage it all the time, but when your mind comes back to the center, you will feel that you have done so without any effort. It's like driving a car. When you're a learner, driving a car takes up 100% of your concentration. Later, when you become more experienced, you can multitask. That is, you can hold a conversation quite safely while driving along. Why? Because driving uses your hands, feet, and eyes, but speaking uses a completely different part of your body. That is your mouth. In the same way, at work, you can let your brain and your hands get on with the work, while your mind gets on with its own task of maintaining mindfulness. Eventually, you might reach the point where the crystal ball appears spontaneously in the mind while you are working, transfixing you with its beauty. You will be left with your pen suspended in your hand for 2 or 3 minutes before realizing it, and later feel a slight regret at the passing of such precious moments. In the evening, when you get home from work, having dinner, you might not feel like meditating immediately. If you are tired and you meditate regardless, you might fall asleep while meditating, which is not a very efficient use of your precious meditation time. Instead, it might be better to fall asleep fitfully in an armchair or watch the TV, observing the crystal ball during the advertising breaks until you feel freshened up and can sit for your evening meditation effectively. In the evening, you should sit for half an hour's meditation. At first, you might sit for only 10 minutes and feel that was already a long time, but later 10 minutes will feel as if you've hardly sat down. One thing you might like to try in order to further your meditation is to promise yourself always to sit for at least as long as it takes to make the object of your meditation clear. If you're not satisfied, extend your meditation until the image has become clear. Try making a rule for yourself that each time you sit for meditation, you must sit until you see the object of meditation clearly before finishing meditation. In other words, refuse to budge before attaining clarity each day. Before going to sleep, sit for a moment more of meditation until you can see the object clearly inside yourself. Enlarge the brightness until it is big enough to cover your whole body, as if you are going to go to sleep inside your ball of brightness. Then stretch out to sleep either on your back or on your right side, while maintaining the bright image at the center of your body. In this way, your mind will be refreshed even as you are sleeping, and you won't wake up feeling like you want to hit the snooze button. Another way to help you build upon the habit of self-observation is to keep a diary of your meditation experience. Write down a few notes on how you feel about your meditation each day after the meditation. You may not notice the improvements in your meditation from day to day, but if you look back over the notes from an entire week, then you will start to see a pattern. Don't worry, you're not writing the notes for the monks to spy on your meditation. They are purely for your own reference. The only suggestion that we're trying to might be good for you if you're keeping a diary is that try to pick up only on the good points of your meditation each time. Don't dwell too much on the faults. Another thing is to record your inner experience. Don't take too much notice of the outer experiences, such as, for example, sore knees, having eaten too much, or your distracting thoughts. Record the data in a natural way to overcome the fickle nature of memory and inspiration. The advantages of keeping a diary are to help you to remember experience, to renew your inspiration, and to give you an overview of your progress. The accountability of keeping a meditation diary will help support your self-discipline to meditate every day in order to have something to write while bringing value to passing experience. Who knows, you might end up with a bestseller on your hands, since there's already a chart topper called A Meditator's Diary by the Connecticut college professor called Jane Hamilton Merritt. In summary, diaries raise our awareness so we can get the most from our precious meditation time. I'd also like to propose 3 bullet points for your diary each day, namely, whether you feel comfortable with your meditation, the stability of your inner experience, and the qualities of the inner experience itself. These 3 headings will help you frame your meditation experience notes in a constructive way. And I would add that you should try to emphasize the best of your meditation each time. Just like the more recent theories of quantum physics, with some things, if you don't observe them, then they never happen in the first place. I once joined something called a dream workshop and had the experience of keeping a diary of my dreams. Many people claim that they never dream, but if they are asked to keep a diary of their dreams, before long they can fill books with details that they have observed in their dreams. It's not that they've only just started to dream, but before they failed to remember or even notice their dreams at all. In the same way, with meditation, at first you might think that your meditation is making no progress because you think that there's no change happened in your meditation. In fact, the reason for no change was that you didn't really know what you were looking for, or you were unable to put it into words. However, if you ensure careful observation by keeping a diary, before long you start to tune in to what your mind is actually doing. You start to see where you can make some improvements, and this is why keeping a diary is a very important way to train yourself in the fundamental skills that are necessary in order to become a good meditator. So let's turn to look now at some of the questions sent in by viewers. In this session, all the questions I have received come from Teresa of Los Angeles. So we come to the first question. In your last online lecture, I enjoyed how you compared between science and meditation. We know that science is hypothesis-driven. I would like to ask whether meditation should also be based on a hypothesis-driven approach. So, thank you, Teresa, for your first question. Generally, the idea of meditation is to sit down without any expectations of any sort. Otherwise, the expectations themselves will contaminate the results. If you consider that scientists must be even-minded and expect their experiment may either confirm or disprove their hypothesis, I suppose you could say that there is a similarity with meditation. The problem with meditation comes, like science, where you get fixated on confirming your expectations. Your question also made me think about why we sometimes visualize a crystal ball or brightness in our meditation. It's not because we never want to see anything more than the object we are imagining, but because, like with grounded theory in experimentation, sometimes it is useful to have an approximation to the actual inner experience we have been advised may arise as a result of our efforts in meditation. We don't need to reinvent the wheel each time we meditate, but like science, where we stand upon the shoulders of those who have gone before us, with meditation we can save time by trusting the methods passed down to us by the teachers in our lineage and our own meditation practice. And it is almost like experimentation about how we can make that practice work for us individually. So for a second question, the COVID-19 pandemic has stirred up much fear in people's minds. Fear seems to be an innate trait for the species to survive. Where does fear fit in the stream of greed, hatred, and delusion? Thank you again, Teresa, for asking a question many people under lockdown would probably have liked to ask themselves. I would agree that fear or anxiety does not appear to fit with the usual primary color defilement palette of greed, hatred, and delusion. Although at a pinch, you could say that fear is a mixture of hatred and delusion, because the things that scare you are generally the things you hate, because they become mixed up with the delusion when we have no idea about the extent of the harm they can bring to us. A better way to understand fear is in terms of a bias or prejudice, because in Buddhism they talk about 4 different sorts of prejudice: greed, hatred, delusion, and fear. You can find this in the Sigalovada Sutta or the teaching about the 6 directions. It tells you that fear in your mind can cause as much damage to you as greed, hatred, or delusion. Another place in the scriptures, the Buddha taught us that there are 5 different sorts of fear: fear of troubles about livelihood, fear of lost reputation, fear of social embarrassment, fear of death, and fear of a miserable life after death. As an antidote to fear, the Buddha suggested equanimity, which can be cultivated by 4 sources of power: the power of wisdom, the power of striving, the power of blamelessness, and the power of solidarity. In terms of developing equanimity, if you are worried about tomorrow, just focus on today, since without meditation, most of the time, our minds are locked in the past and the future. Meditation will help to put you into the moment. Most people have no problem coping for as long as their mind is in the here and now. If you can put yourself in the present, you can handle difficult thinking. Since there's a tendency for people to become more anxious as they self-isolate at home, Being able to meditate more than ever is a great opportunity to alleviate stress, depression, and of course, fear. The important thing is to keep trying rather than giving in to fear, especially now when there is so much potentially to worry about. Use meditation to come back to cultivate equanimity. Your ability to remain even-minded will only get stronger over time. And try to avoid letting yourself get entangled with mindsets such as a worst-case scenario, and focus on what's happening in the here and now. Aquí y ahora, as they say in Spanish. Turning to Teresa's final question, it seems that Dhammakaya monks can own money. Is this true? If so, what's the philosophy behind it? So here is a potentially contentious question about monks and money. I suppose it's fair to ask because I always make a pitch for temple donations at the end of the program. Unfortunately, this is often the sort of question that people use to discredit monks or to whip up a scandal. Sometimes it's just a sort of ploy to make monks feel guilty about any expenses they experience. The general rule of thumb for monks and money is that as long as monks have acquired the thing they received in an honest way, and not by stealing it, and this includes funds earmarked for the temple rather than as a personal gift, generally the possessions of a monk are not a problem. In the time of the Buddha, however, there was a special rule about monks being forbidden to handle gold and silver, which in the modern Thai language is synonymous with the word money. Therefore, many Thai people think that Theravada monks should not handle money or even have an awareness of anything of an economic nature. If they need to use money, they are supposed to have an attendant who holds their purse strings and handles financial matters on their behalf. In Thailand, to be honest, there are very few temples in the present day that stick strictly to this rule, and Dhammakaya temple is not one of them. Most of the finances of a temple go through charitable accounts and not the personal accounts of monks. Nonetheless, temples like ours, who allow for monks to handle their personal finances, work with a dispensation also in the monastic discipline that allows monks to carry money they need to pay for necessities when they are traveling. Ironically, the reason the Buddha didn't want monks to handle gold and silver in the early days of Buddhism was not because he wanted monks to own nothing, but because he thought it might make monks the target of highway robbers. These days, however, social life has changed a lot. If you have no money on you, when you go outside the temple, if you get mugged on the street, it may mean that you get beaten on by the assailants worse than if you had some money for them to steal from you. Also, many countries in the West have a law about vagrancy that states it is unlawful to leave your home without a certain minimum amount of money to cover possible costs you will encounter. In the US, I think it's $3 or equivalent, since it's illegal to be broke, especially if it leads you to rely on strangers to help you out with something like bus fare, because it would be interpreted as panhandling or at the very least loitering with intent. Therefore, in the US, at a certain point in the history of Dhammakaya branches, it was decided that monks must be paid a small stipend each month to keep the monks safe and also legal in public, while allowing for monks to give donations themselves for causes close to their heart. Making a minimum wage, at least on paper, is also an important part of maintaining visas for non-US monks to enter the country lawfully as a religious worker, and not to have recourse to public funds. As you can see, that it's not just Dhammakaya temple, but really every temple in the US and beyond that has had to adapt its interpretation of the monastic rules to modern-day laws and expectations. In Dhammakaya temple, our teachers do not encourage monks to hoard possessions, so we still respect the original principles laid down by the Buddha to keep a monk's life humble, safe, and simple. But I should remind you that there is nothing simple about falling into poverty. For today, let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. For those of you who like to visit the temple in Azusa to bring offerings, please be informed that as pandemic case rates are on the rise again, our temple is still using the offering site in the parking lot next to the main temple building between 10 and 11 a.m. each day. If you have trouble with the passcode on the gate or wish to visit at a different time, please call Jenny on 562-716-2961. You can bring offerings of food each day between 10 and 10:45 a.m. Most recently, every day there is a short ceremony for requesting 5 precepts, offering of the midday meal, and receiving a blessing between 10:45 and 11:15 a.m. And on Friday, this ceremony is conducted in English. For those unable to visit in person, all the other ways of accepting money transfers to the IMC are still available, whether it be mailing checks, bank transfer, Zelle, or Venmo. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all continuing to take the opportunity to support the temple in this way. For the reasons mentioned before, at the temple there are still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim. You can, however, continue to access Dhamma teachings in English through several convenient channels. For aficionados of Zoom meetings, you can access the Inner Peace channel by joining the Zoom channel ID 970-1192-2337, and the meeting passcode is 072. And as you will see from the program schedule on the slide, content is available for most of the day now, 7 days a week, and brings together all the usual programming from our temple with the English and Spanish content from various branches across the US. The times shown on this particular slide are for the West Coast. For content local to Azusa, you can continue to follow teachings at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you particularly interested in my talks, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which I've set up in my own name. According to the current Peace Point schedule, every Sunday morning you've got me with live material and archive material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon appears every Thursday evening. And for families listening in, you may be interested in a special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 6 to 6:30 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and the on-demand programming, you can also download the MindGem app for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone even when you are offline. It now also has push notifications to keep you up to date with upcoming activities on the Inner Peace channel, such as the full moon meditations. So this session we have looked at the topic of liberation, coarse and fine-tuning of the mind. For my next live session online with you, which will fingers crossed be a week on Sunday morning, I'll revisit the topic of Introduction to Meditation and Spiritual Transformation, Developing Vision, where the recording also had some problems back in October 2020. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers you can email your questions about meditation or what you've heard in the lecture to the email address that you can see spelled out on the slide, and I'll do my best to answer those questions on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness and complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Hopefully, as a result of today's session, you will be inspired to balance your coarse and fine-tuning of the mind and to start recording your meditation experiences in a diary. So for today, this is me, Phra Nicholas Thanissaro, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.